Well, good afternoon. We appreciate all of you who are able to join us, and we'll be watching this at a later time. Part of Elderly Empowerment Month, we've partnered with our friends at the Ohio Attorney General's Office, as we've done in previous years, to bring you, we think, very informative and useful information around various issues that impact you as seniors. So today's webinar, we have Danielle Murphy, and she's a consumer educator with the Attorney General's Office, and she is going to be talking to us about senior scams. And this, unfortunately, is just a reality for many of us. I think we know somebody either personally or we know somebody that has been impacted. Even if ultimately the person wasn't successful in the scam, just going through the process, I've heard from several of you that in and of itself, just going through the process is a bit traumatic. So I am excited to learn from Danielle myself. So Danielle, without further ado, I will kick it over to you, and I will try to monitor any questions that come in as well. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and we are excited to be here, and this is a very important topic, scams. But before I get started talking about scams, I just want to tell you a little bit about our office. Attorney General Dave Yost is our 51st Attorney General, and some of the duties of his office is that he is the attorney for the state of Ohio. Now, that doesn't mean he can call you. You can call him for personal representation to dispute a speeding violation, right? What it means is he represents all state elected officials, including the governor's office, the Secretary of State's office, and the Treasurer of State's office. Our office also supports local law enforcement, and we do this in a couple different ways. We have the Police Officers Training Academy, which is in London, Ohio, and there officers across the state get the training that they need to make sure Ohio citizens are safe. They have a gun range and a high-speed track and many other classes to make sure those officers are up to date and current. We also support local law enforcement through our Bureau of Criminal Investigation Office, or BCI. So how many of you out there listening like to watch those crime scene shows like NCIS or CSI? I know I do. Well, that's what BCI does. We solve crimes and homicides through DNA analysis and fingerprint analysis. However, it does take our office longer than that hour to solve those crimes. Our office also enforces laws passed by the General Assembly, and those laws include environmental protections, charitable organizations, and consumer protections. And I'm here today from our consumer protection section. We want to ensure a safe marketplace for consumers, so we enforce those laws related to home improvement work, seeing a store advertisement, or buying a vehicle. Back in 2020, our section took in more than 20,000 complaints from Ohio consumers like you. This is an example of our most common complaints that come into our section. I've been doing this job for maybe 7 or so years, and year after year, motorized vehicles have been #1. For example, that might mean that your vehicle needs repair work done and you took it to get repaired and they did shoddy work, or they didn't repair that vehicle at all. Maybe you just needed to get the title of a vehicle and you couldn't get that title. That would all fall under motorized vehicles. But I do want to point out to you, #8 is identity theft. And unfortunately, we're all kind of been vulnerable with data breaches. And so today I'm also going to tell and share some protections that you can do to protect your identity as well. Back in 2011, the Attorney General at the time created our Economic Crimes Unit. And this is a group of individuals that help local authorities identify, investigate, and prosecute consumer fraud on a criminal nature. Well, let me give you an example of what I mean by this. I'm going to introduce you to Patrick Wilson. He's not really an upstanding guy. This is a gentleman who had a home improvement he's a home improvement contractor in Southeast Ohio. And he's facing 70 criminal charges for allegedly stealing more than $400,000 from homeowners and, unfortunately, elderly victims. Patrick Wilson would go and try to get work. He would ask for large sums of money up front for materials. Then he would take off without doing the work, or he would just disappear. Well, our economic crimes unit is helping to prosecute this individuals. Long story short, we are trying to catch the bad guys when they're not hiding behind a computer, when they're not hiding behind the phone, and when they're not out of the country. We also have a Robocall Enforcement unit, and this unit was created just about a year ago, right before the pandemic started. And the goal of this unit is to make Ohio the toughest state for robocalls to operate in. One of the biggest tips that we can give our audiences is just don't answer the phone. If you don't know who's calling you, please don't answer it. If it's an important call that you're waiting on, they will leave a voicemail. We are trying to create a database so you can file a complaint and give us those phone numbers that are calling you that are robocalls, and I will give you that information towards the end of this presentation. However, one of the reasons it's been so difficult to stop these robocalls is robocalls were created to help us in some way. I know I like to get those robocalls reminding me that I have a doctor's appointment or dentist appointment coming up next week that I probably made that appointment 6 months ago and would have forgotten had I not gotten that robocall. Or maybe you have a child that goes to school and there's been a snowstorm and they're not going to have school that day. These would all be robocalls that are legal robocalls. Unfortunately, as we know, most of the calls we're getting are illegal. And it's somebody that's trying to get personal information from you somehow. But I'm here today to talk about seniors, and seniors ages 60 and up represent about 15% of the population, but unfortunately represent more than 30% of the reported fraud. Well, the FBI wanted to know why exactly seniors are targeted, and so they did a survey. And here are some of the reasons why seniors are targeted. Seniors are trusting and polite. Seniors want to trust everybody, and I'll bet that you can say that you were raised very different than your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren, whereas maybe your handshake is your word, and you just don't want to question people, and that's just how that generation was raised. Also, seniors are known to have more assets. A senior has worked very hard their whole life to save for a nice retirement, and just do have more assets, and scammers know that. I deal with a lot of individuals that aren't of a senior age that are being scammed, but they're just not losing as much money because they don't have as much money. Seniors are also less likely to report that fraud. There's many reasons why this may be. Maybe a senior doesn't even realize that they're being part of a scam or that they're being scammed. Or maybe they're too terribly embarrassed to tell somebody and report it. I will give you an example of this. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law was part of a scam. And when it finally came out, she just started crying and said, "I'm just so embarrassed. How could I have been so stupid?" And nobody is stupid. Scammers are, this is their job, and they're very good at what they do. And I'm going to give you examples of how they use certain techniques to scam us. Also, seniors can be independent or isolated. Many times seniors, I know I have elderly parents and I work 8 hours, 9 hours a day where I can't be with them to know who's calling, to know what they're doing on the internet. And so this becomes an issue, and this is another reason why scammers target seniors. But scammers do use a variety of tactics, like I said, to get to us. And I'm going to point out a few red flags that you want to be aware of. And if this kind of comes across or to your attention, you're going to know, well, Danielle said this is probably a scam. And the first one is they request a wire transfer, a prepaid money card, or a gift card as a form of a payment. What we're seeing more often now are gift cards. And why these scammers like this is because they can take the numbers off the back of the card that you give them, and then they can transfer them electronically, and they're hard to track, and then they can just disappear. So those iTunes gift cards, Amazon gift cards. These are all forms of payment that these scammers tend to like. Maybe they'll request any kind of personal information. If you get phone calls and they're asking you for information that you're not sure you should give them, like a social security number, maybe a bank account number, this is all personal information that you don't need to give somebody over the phone. So they're asking you a lot of questions personally. Another red flag is these scare tactic scams. These scammers don't want you to think, they want you to act immediately. So they're going to call you, they're going to tell you you owe back taxes and you have to pay immediately or you're going to be arrested. Or if you don't give them your social security number, then you're going to have charges put against you. And I will give you examples of all of these as we talk about the individual scams. Maybe they tell you not to tell anybody. Let's keep this a secret between you and I. Because if you start talking about what's going on, then somebody could put questions into your mind like, well, yeah, that doesn't seem right. So we see this in a couple different particular scams. One of them is the grandparent scam, where the grandson or the granddaughter says, Grandma or Grandpa, don't tell mom and dad, let me take care of it in person. I'm already in trouble enough. Or maybe we see it in the romance scam, where you have created a friendship online with someone or a relationship, and they tell you not to tell your family members because then the friendship or the relationship will end. So if they tell you to keep it a secret, that's another red flag. Maybe they tell you that you're going to make money. I mean, we're all financially driven, right? We're all working hard, waiting on that Friday payday. We're also all maybe playing lotteries or scratch offs, trying to get that money. We all need money for different reasons, and scammers will use that tactic as well. Like I said in the Patrick Wilson story, they request a large down payment before actually doing the work. Or maybe they don't give you a contract, or they don't write anything into the contract. What I tell people is you want to make sure that anything that they tell you verbally that you get in writing. For example, maybe you're in the market for a vehicle. You go to the dealership, you take it for a test drive, and that dealer says, well, if you buy it today, I will take $1,200 off the final amount. Well, you better sure they put that in writing. Because if they don't, at the end of the day, it's your word against their word. And if they don't put something in writing or give you a contract, then they're probably not an upstanding business and you don't want to do business with them anyway. And of course, sending money out of the country is another big red flag that it is a scam. So let's go ahead and talk about the scams that we're seeing happening right here in Ohio. And the first one is the grandparent scam. I'm going to show you and share a video clip from Nora O'Donnell from CBS Evening News about this scam, and then I'll talk more and break this down a little bit more after the video clip.
All right, a warning tonight about deceptive thieves robbing elderly victims, sometimes on their own doorsteps. We'll show you how the scam works and reveal inside secrets from a con man who pulled it off many times. Carter Evans reports tonight.
Hello. You're watching a scam artist in action.
Okay, bye-bye.
He just took $10,000 from Barbara McCullough. It all started with a phone call from someone claiming to be her grandson.
I said, you really doesn't sound like you, but he said, I have a horrible cold. Then he started crying.
The caller said he needed bail money fast.
I went down to the bank and drew $10,000 out.
What's unusual is the scammer was caught on a security camera.
How often does one actually come to the victim's home?
This is only the second time in the 15 years that I've been working in these types of crimes.
Grandparent scams are one of the fastest growing crimes, and they all begin with a cry for help.
Hi, Grandpa. Hi. You know who this is? Randy? Yeah.
Nationwide, seniors are cheated out of nearly $3 billion a year. That's the official estimate.
I've heard upwards of $10 billion every single year because a lot of these crimes aren't reported because a lot of times they're very ashamed.
You can make 10 grand sometimes in a day if you do it properly.
A few years ago, I interviewed a con man in federal custody about his scam.
Once you get them emotionally involved, then they'll do anything for you.
I felt flattered that he even called me. Well, he called me. He didn't want to upset his parents. That's what I thought.
Detectives are now trying to track down that scam artist, and they say seniors should try and verify who's calling by asking a very personal question that only a family member would know the answer to, and also call a relative before handing over any money. Nora?
That's good information, Carter. Thank you.
So that's the grandparent scam, and that's what we see. And sorry. Like they said in the video clip, you want to be the one in charge of the conversation. You want to be asking questions, and you want to ask those questions that only you or your family members may know about a situation. Maybe it's a nickname that someone in the family has that only your family call that person, or a middle name. Also, maybe what you want to do is talk to your family members and come up with a code word or some kind of a question that you can ask that if they don't answer it, then you know that it is a scam. Also confirm with family. Many of us have cell phones now, as well as maybe a landline or multiple people living in the home, or maybe you can walk across the hall or to a neighbor's house and get a phone. If you're not sure, call your son or daughter, call your grandchild and ask. And obviously we say don't send that money if you're just not sure. The next scam I want to talk about is the imposter scam. And an imposter scam is just when an individual imposters usually a government agency or an organization. So for an example, I'm going to show you another video clip, and this is what we were seeing on the imposter scam a couple of years ago. And I'm going to tell you how these scammers change it just slightly. And so it can confuse us because these scams do change quite frequently.
Explain that to me again, please.
All right, here's the deal. I'm going to pretend I'm with the IRS. I'm going to say you owe back taxes and threaten you with jail time. That'll scare you into giving me a whole bunch of your money. I also need your social security number too, because then I can really take you to the cleaners.
Unfortunately, it's never this obvious. That's why we're here, dedicated to protecting Ohio families against frauds and scams. Get the facts you need today at ohioprotects.org.
So that was the imposter scam, and that was the IRS scam, what we called it. Unfortunately, like I said, these scams can change. And what we're seeing now is that the Social Security office is calling. They say that maybe your Social Security number has expired and you need a new one. Maybe they say that you're not going to get your Social Security benefits if you don't give them that Social Security number. So we have to be very careful how most government agencies are not going to call you on the phone. They're going to send you a letter. But the other unfortunate thing is we can't trust our caller ID any longer. These scammers download an app called spoofing. And what they can do is they can put any phone number and any business they want to appear on caller ID. So I'm going to give you a story, an example of a woman who called our office. Diane from Lancaster called and said, one morning she was sitting at her kitchen table having coffee when the phone rang. Well, what do we do before we answer that call? We look at the caller ID, and so she did. It said it was the Columbus Police Department with a 614 area code. She immediately picked it up. Hello, Grandma? Jake, is that you? Yes, Grandma, it's Jake. Well, why are you in Columbus? Are you in trouble? It says you're at the police station. Yes, Grandma, I skipped school today. Came to Columbus with a friend and I was in a minor accident and it was my fault. So you see where I'm going with this. This is the grandparent scam, but now these scammers have notched it up a whole nother level and they have spoofed the phone number and changed the caller ID. So now not only is Diane scared that her grandson's in trouble and her heartstrings are pulled, she wants to help her grandchild. She really does think it's coming from the Columbus Police Department. So we have to be very careful. Don't provide that personal information. Like I said, ask for it in writing. And the most important thing is call back using a legitimate phone number. Don't call back using the number that appears on caller ID, and don't call back using the number that they give you. The prizes and sweepstakes scam. So we're all financially driven, but we also like to get gifts and prizes, right? What we say is if you get these offers in the mail, you should not have to pay advance fees or taxes to receive a prize. But as you probably can't tell, a lot of these prizes are very high in the dollar amount. So $550. So the taxes are going to be kind of high, they say, or the fees to receive this. But the most important tip that I like to give my audiences is if you didn't enter it, how can you win it, right? If you didn't enter that sweepstakes or you didn't enter that lottery, how can you win it? So you really have to think through instead of being caught up in the emotion and the excitement of winning something so large. So we also see the fake check scam in several different ways. And this has happened to my husband. He's received a check in the mail and, for no good reason. There are certain things that you can glean from these checks. Those numbers on the bottom in the middle of the check mean something. The last few numbers should be the check number. Well, you can see here that they have the check number as the first few sets of numbers, which is wrong. So, be careful. Many times what we see with the fake check scam is maybe you're selling something on an online site and somebody reaches out to you and wants to purchase it. And so they send you a check and it's written for $300 more. And when you get a hold of that person, they say, oh, I'm sorry, that was a mistake. Go ahead and deposit that check and just send that $300 with your own money. So that's how they get their money with these fake checks. So just be aware. The other thing, one of my other big tips for my audiences is if it sounds too good to be true, then it is. You're not going to get a check for no good reason for $150,000, right? So we have to think through, is this really make sense? And another scam that we're still seeing is the Computerist pair scam. So let me go ahead and play this video clip and we'll talk more about that and how this has changed a little bit after.
Hello? Hello, this is Bobby with tech support. Yeah, I'm just gonna need you to give me complete access to your computer so I can pretend to remove a virus while actually taking all your personal and financial information. Oh, and I'm gonna lock a computer, so you have to pay me to access it. Sound good?
Unfortunately, it's never this obvious. That's why we're here, dedicated to protecting Ohio families against frauds and scams. Get the facts you need today at ohioprotects.org.
So this is the computer repair scam. And I think the biggest change on this scam is they're not necessarily calling on the phone as much anymore. Maybe you'll see a pop-up that appears on your computer when you're doing work on it, and it says that you have a virus and you need to run your antivirus program. Somehow you got a virus on your computer and they're trying to access that computer and get information from it. So what I tell people is if you get that pop-up, don't call the number that appears on that pop-up and don't click on the link. Go to your own antivirus program and do a hard run when you're done on your computer. You should never allow anyone remote control access to your computer. So if you do get a call on the phone saying you have a virus, remember that callers can't tell if you have a virus on your computer by just calling you. This is just truly a scam. So relationship scams, we see this in several different ways, the family and friends scams, the romance scams. You want to look for the signs of a scam. And some of these signs are that, well, let me back up a little bit. I have a lot of friends, a lot of colleagues that even in my work situation that have met somebody online and then they had a date with them and they met them in person and they're still with them. I think the biggest tip on a relationship scam is you create a relationship and you're communicating just through the computer, and then you try to see them or visit them or set up a meeting with them. And they come back and they say that they can't because they don't have the money. Their car is broken down, and if only they had the money to repair that vehicle, then they could meet you. Or maybe they say that they're too tied up in caring for their sick aunt or their sick mother or father, and the medical bills are just too much and they need money. So the biggest tip and sign that it is a scammer is they're going to ask for money pretty pretty soon into the relationship, because that's really all they want. So let's go ahead and turn pages just a little bit and talk about staying safe on the computer, and give you some tips on cyber safety. Making sure you maintain a clean computer is so important by downloading and installing those antivirus and anti-spyware programs to make sure that it is looking for those viruses and malware that get into our computer. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Make sure you're deleting suspicious emails. If you get an email, I've just been bombarded with so many emails from PayPal or Amazon or Target claiming that, you know, you've won something, or that your account has been compromised and you need to change your credit card. All of these things look legitimate. They use logos to make it seem like it really is that company or organization. You want to just really read through the email carefully. Sometimes the grammar just isn't quite right. Couple other things that you can do is you can take your mouse and you can hover over who it's from. And if the email address doesn't match who they say that it's coming from, that's another clue that it could be suspicious. But the biggest tip is if you get an email from a friend and it's just a link, or it says, click on here to see a funny cat video, don't do it. Beware of any unknown attachments, downloads, and links. Like I said, clicking on those links or any pop-ups that come up, don't click on them. Watch for scam websites. So for instance, maybe, you know, in a little bit, I'm going to tell you to run your credit report. If you forget where I tell you to go or how to do that, don't Google free credit report, because a lot of the first few websites that come up are going to be scam websites. You want to make sure you go to legitimate websites. And don't provide that personal information over public Wi-Fi. So example, maybe now that things are opening up and we're able to be out and about a little bit more, you decide to go to the coffee shop and use their Wi-Fi. I would suggest not doing any shopping or banking on those open public Wi-Fis. Only put personal information in the computer when you have a locked, or you have to put a password in to get onto a Wi-Fi. So let's also switch gears again and now talk about identity theft, like I said that I was going to. And identity theft occurs when someone obtains and uses your personal information without your permission to commit fraud. So what are some warning signs that maybe our information has been taken and someone has used it for identity theft? The first one might be denied credit. For instance, maybe we're at the mall now that we can go out again and we're shopping. We get up to the cash register and the clerk says, well, would you like to apply for credit to save 15% today? You decide that it's a good idea and you say yes, and then you're denied, and you've never been denied before. That's probably a first red flag that something's going on. Also, unauthorized charges on your bank statements or credit card statements. This happened to my husband and I right around Christmas time, and he was looking at our credit card statement, and there were all these charges to Uber International. Well, I don't know if you know what Uber is, but it's kind of like a taxi service. And as you know, we were all on shutdown and we weren't going anywhere in December, let alone outside of the country. So make sure you're looking at your charges and that you know that you've made those charges. Maybe debt collectors start contacting you. So a couple falls ago, I was at the OSU Retirees Conference and someone came up to me and said, have you been seeing a scam where debt collectors are calling all the time? And I said, no, I haven't. And they said, well, I keep getting these phone calls. And I said, well, have you been part of a data breach? Maybe your information's been compromised and somehow you've been part of identity theft. So if you're starting to get calls like that, it's something to look into. Or maybe you receive unfamiliar bills or you no longer receive mail. So for instance, if for some reason you don't get that credit card statement the middle of the month, it is not a gift to you from that credit card company, right? You still owe that money. You still owe and have to pay that bill. Maybe somebody stole that bill. out of your mailbox and knew it was a credit card bill. And what do they get when they get that bill? Your account number is right there on it. So it's really that easy. So you have to make sure that you are getting your bills and you don't get unfamiliar ones as well. And errors on your credit report. And so this is what I was saying. Everybody gets one free weekly credit report from the 3 credit reporting agencies. And this used to be yearly, but because of the pandemic, they have recently allowed that everybody can get a weekly one from those 3 credit reporting agencies until April of 2022. So, or 21. No, 22. Sorry, it just changed. So anyway, you want to go to annualcreditreport.com, or you can call Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax. And I'm going to have all this information for you on our resources slide at the end of the presentation. So how do we reduce our risk of becoming a victim of identity theft? Well, the first one is shred your documents. Anything that has personal information or account numbers on that you don't need any longer, make sure you're shredding those. Make sure you watch for scams. This is a great presentation, and I would ask you to share this information with your family and friends, and anybody that couldn't be here today or couldn't log on to watch it. Make sure you're sharing what you've learned today. Create a mail schedule. Know when your mail's coming, and if you're still writing checks and putting things in the mailbox, make sure you take it to a locked mailbox like the U.S. Post Office. Don't just think that if you take it down to your mailbox and put that red flag up, that there aren't bad people around that are curious to see what's in there. So you have to be careful about that as well. Update your computer software. Don't volunteer information. Make sure you're monitoring your financial statements and knowing that what you've charged is truly on there. And don't carry extra personal information on you. Make sure to take that Social Security card out of your wallet. I also suggest maybe taking out extra credit cards. If you're going out shopping for the day, you know if you're going to use your bank account or if you're going to put it on a charge account. Just don't carry all of it with you in case someone steals your wallet or you misplace it. So let's go ahead and wrap up today. And some of the tips that I went over today is you want to always report illegal robocalls. And I'm going to give you that information in the next couple slides of where to do that so that we can make Ohio the toughest state to for robocallers to exist. Make sure you're researching businesses and charities, and you can do this in several different ways. You can call our office and ask how many complaints have been filed against a certain business. You can also look up legitimate charities. Every legitimate charity has to register through our office. If you're not sure if this charity is something you want to give to or is legitimate, you can go on our website and put the name of the charity in there, and it will tell you if it's a legitimate charity. You can also go to the Better Business Bureau's website. They give every company an A through F rating, just like in school. So A being great, F being not great. They also give you a list of complaints against those companies, and they categorize those complaints. Make sure that you're aware of strangers who seek personal connections. Always keep your personal information as private as you can. And know if it sounds too good to be true, that it probably is. You never want to send money via suspicious methods, and we talked about those methods at the beginning of this presentation. Never give out personal information. Never carry unnecessary personal information on you. You should never have to pay to win a prize. You should never allow strangers remote control access to your computer, and never pay the full amount of anything up front. Like I said, if you're having a contractor come in and do work for you, you can put 1/3 of the money down so they can buy the materials, wait till the job's halfway completed and put another 1/3 down, and then until you're fully satisfied with the work, wait to pay at the end. So this is where you can file a complaint with our office, ohioprotects.org. We offer an informal dispute resolution process. So if you have a complaint against a business, You can file a complaint, and a complaint specialist will work with you and that business to try to get the resolution you desire. It is not a legal service. You can file a complaint 3 different ways: in hard copy form, online also at ohioattorneygeneral.gov, or by phone at 800-282-0515. We also offer an identity theft help. If you've been a victim of identity theft, we want to hear from you, and we will help you with those debt reporting agencies, our debt collectors, and credit reporting agencies on your behalf to try to resolve the issue and help you, because it is daunting to go through being scammed or being part of identity theft. We just don't know where to start. So we do want to help you in those ways. So here are some resources I was telling you about. And if you want to run your credit report, you can call, like I said, the 3 credit reporting agencies, or go to annualcreditreport.com. And here's also a phone number. The Better Business Bureau website is on here. If you want to research any businesses, you can do it that way. Make sure you are on the Do Not Call registry. A lot of people think that it doesn't work, but unfortunately, scammers don't go by the law, and they will somehow get around that, but it does help some. Down here on the bottom left, the National Cybersecurity Alliance. If you're not sure what kind of antivirus or anti-spyware programs you should run or have on your computer, you should go to staysafeonline.org. So here is another way that you can contact our section. Again, you can call 800-282-0515. That is what I have for you today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. David is monitoring the chat box, so I'm not sure if we do, but again, I hope you learned a lot today, and I hope that you share this information with others.
Well, thank you very much, Danielle. And again, this is Danielle Murphy. She's a consumer educator with the Ohio Attorney General's office. So Danielle, I did have a question. And again, the information, I always learn something every time I go through these. But in the news, I mean, right now, and just a few weeks ago, I've noticed these, you know, a couple weeks ago, it was the oil refinery, where it seemed to be a type of ransomware where, you know, a large processing facility was kind of shut down, and it affected, you know, motorists and the supply of gas up and down the eastern seaboard. And currently there's a meat processing facility, I think in maybe Brazil, that again, it seems to be a ransomware type of situation. So, you know, and again, I don't know the legitimacy, but I'm hearing that perhaps it could even be organized groups working overseas that might be targeting various businesses. So I guess that's one of the things that, you know, concerns and frightens me a little bit. It's like, what chance do we have, Danielle, if the meat processing plants and the oil refinery plants, it just makes me nervous that if these folks really target you. So, you know, I have an electronic health record. Are they going to go after the hospital where that's housed, you know? And again, and it seems oftentimes that these companies ended up paying, you know, to resume the flow of, you know, get the materials they needed or getting the access they needed. They do kind of a cost benefit analysis. And so, I mean, is it one of those situations, Danielle, depending on how complex and sophisticated the outfit is? I mean, we can do our best, but perhaps if we're up against an organization like that, it might be really challenging for us to protect ourselves as an individual or as an organization.
Yeah, you know, again, it's complex. I know that I have been part of many data breaches. I think that's what you're talking about, are data breaches where information gets out there and compromised. I mean, Equifax is one of the largest ones out there. What you can do is you can freeze your credit. So I didn't get into that when we talked about identity theft, but everybody can, you can freeze your credit for free. For instance, let's say all the credit you have established in credit cards, it doesn't affect that. It's when you're trying to establish new credit. So if you freeze your credit, nobody can get that information and nobody can charge in your name anymore. And it's free to place. It doesn't affect your credit score. It stays on there as long as you want it to, but you have the authority to then thaw it or open it back up. For instance, maybe you don't have enough credit and your car breaks down and you need to establish new credit for that. You can just ask them to take that off. So there's certain things that we can do to protect ourselves. There's freezing our credit. We can do a fraud alert. A fraud alert stays on for 1 year. And for instance, that story I was telling you, when you're at the cashier and you want to go ahead and open that store account, before they would do that, you're going to get a call from the credit reporting agency asking you if it's really you, are you trying to open this? So there's certain things that we can do to protect ourselves, looking at our bank statements and our credit card statements. Like I said, I have been part of many data breaches. There was Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. There was State of Ohio. There was the Equifax. And if we just take some of these steps of monitoring and putting the protections into place, it's not always guaranteed. I know, recently there was the unemployment fraud that was happening, and several of my coworkers were part of that. Lots of people, I was hearing it all over the place. So we can protect ourselves as much as we can, but unfortunately, there are organizations, and fortunately, that we can reach out to for help. But if we take these steps and, don't give out our information, try to monitor it, that's the best that we can do at this point, unfortunately.
Yeah. And Danielle, just to clarify, I think you said at annualcreditreport.com through maybe April of 2022, folks are able to access a weekly credit report, I believe is what you said.
Yes, or Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax.
Okay. Well, I know for some folks that is an additional peace of mind to be able to reach out and see that. So,
yes.
And in your comments around the seniors and being, very helpful and nice and kind and generous, I think that's very true. And I do think maybe that's why I get so emotional about this, because that could just as easily, and it has been my grandparents, and they are very kind, and they're very, they have so many grandkids and great grandkids, it's just, it just really bothers me that folks take advantage of that kindness. But, we just need to be aware, as you taught us, I think, today. So.
Good. And also, unfortunately, with these stimulus checks, and I just got an email recently that there might be another one from July 15th through December. Just be aware, do your research. If somebody reaches out and says that there's a fee, or you can jump in line, or I'm going to help you, these scammers look at the news, they follow the headlines. So whatever's happening at the time, they're going to twist the scam so that they can get their money, so that they can scam us. So be aware of what's going on and just be as cautious as you can be.
Yep. Good advice. Well, once again, this is Danielle Murphy. She is a consumer educator with the Ohio Attorney General Office, and she was talking to us about scams, and scams specifically that are targeted at seniors. And all this information, for those of you who weren't able to watch this live, will be posted on the board's, Mental Health and Recovery Board's YouTube channel, and we'll send out information a variety of different ways to make sure that you all have that information. Again, Danielle, thank you so much for your time and this wonderful information. I know it's going to help seniors in our county, and it's going to help anybody that watches this clip that you've done for us today. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. And again, please share this information, and we look forward to working with your county in the future.
All righty, thank you. So